Since the 1970s, the film industry has been contending with the chin. Now, Gareth Miles and Simon Appleton examine each year in the career of Bruce Campbell.
What do you say we go back up there? Just the two of us, just to see what's going on. Maybe spend the night.
Hello and welcome to This A Year in the Career. We're looking at 1984 in Bruce Campbell's career. This is the podcast that looks at the career of Bruce Campbell 1 year at a time. I'm your host, Gareth. You can find me online at garethmiles.com or at garethmiles on Twitter, and you can get in touch with me on gareth@ayearinthecareer.com. My cheerful co-host is Simon Appleton. How are you, Simon?
I'm good. Still hanging in there with everything that's going on.
Excellent. And where can people find you, Simon?
You can find my interesting movie blog at moviemustache.com, and you can also find me on Twitter at movie_mustache.
So if you enjoy it, absolutely get in touch with us if you like. You can throw us an email or tweet us. And if you have any thoughts, or you want to correct us on something, or you want to throw in your 10 cents, then give us a shout. We'd love to hear from you. We're totally independent. We're free to listen to, so please do share us with your friends and family and secret lovers and all those sorts of things. And just let people know about us. It goes both ways, of course. If you have a Bruce Campbell connection that you want us to, investigate, or a site or a product or a service or that sort of thing that you think our listeners would benefit from, then drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Groovy, and that's an appropriate word to be using on this podcast.
Indeed it is.
As we roll through the years, this is the second year that we're looking at. Obviously, the first year was 1981, where we had a bit of an analysis of The Evil Dead and how charmed we were by it. And Simon had not seen The Evil Dead prior to preparing to record these podcasts, and he was quite taken with it, which is a good accolade for The Evil Dead. So this week we're going to be looking at Going Back, which was Bruce's follow-up movie made a couple of years later, and it couldn't be farther from the former, because this, where the Evil Dead was ferocious and crazy, this is gentle and
heartwarming.
Yes, and not without its conflict along the way, but it's actually notable. I think this film is a particular standout in Bruce's career, because this is one of the only times that he genuinely does full-on drama. He's not being hammy. He's giving a performance, and it's so early in his career you can see the potential of the man behind it, because he does give a decent performance, and that is as Bryce Chapman, Bruce Campbell, Bryce Chapman in Going Back. So I'll ask Simon. You hadn't seen this before. This.
Again, no, I had not. Never even heard of it, to be fair. It hasn't quite got the notoriety that The Evil Dead does.
All right.
So obviously I read a brief synopsis of what it was, and I thought it could be interesting. And it's an interesting coming-of-age type road trip almost. Although the road trip doesn't go very far. Movie. It was a bit predictable, but it was as I say, it was heartwarming. It was reflective of that. I mean, the both literal and the title obviously refers to both the figurative and literal ways of thinking and going back in terms of growing up. I liked the characters, thought they were quite interesting. It sort of demonstrates how people do change as they tend to grow, and the point at which we send our children off to college is a point at which they do change. The problem I found with this film was, though, because I had already read the synopsis, not the actual, literally just a brief description of what was going on, I was waiting for the 4 years later we go back bit to see the change and the conflict. And again, I had a pretty good idea of where it was going to be, but it's still an enjoyable experience. It was certainly filmed in some beautiful areas of countryside, and Bruce does either grow or apply, I'm not sure which, a fantastic mustache.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out that that's the best way to age people, isn't it? By 4 years, whenever you're filming something a week later.
One turns into a long-haired, bearded, hippie-looking type. The other one looks very straight-laced and and almost stick up his ass with a mustache, and yeah.
Yep, that's about it. Yeah, so the story does follow. I think IMDb does quite well at summarizing the story. In 1964, two high school friends, Bryce and Cleveland, leave their or Clee as he's called.
Yes.
Leave their suburban neighborhood in Michigan to spend the summer in the countryside before going off to college. They befriend a local farmer, Jack Budell, who we will be coming to on a number of occasions, who offers them a place to stay. As days pass, Cleveland helps Jack around the farm and finds him the father figure that he lacks. And that feels really pointless putting that into the synopsis, because that's, as you say, one of the kind of things that happens for you to latch on to as the film goes along.
Yeah.
Anyway, carrying on. While Bryce falls in love with a local girl named Cindy. The Unforgettable Summer ends too soon. I believe the summer lasts 2 weeks by this stage. I'm not making fun of it. No, I shouldn't do that, because it's just the synopsis I'm making fun of. But memories linger. 4 years later, Bryce and Cleveland drive up to Jack's farm and learn that there is no going back. I feel that that's maybe a better synopsis than you may have read the similar one that I read, where it actually tells you some of the plot details of what happens in that second half.
Yeah, I've obviously I the synopsis I read didn't get into what happens in the second part, but it almost gives it away without saying it, if that makes sense. You know, because it's I think the last words are they find out there is no going back, and of course then you realise the only way this film did surprise me was I expected them to go back and find Jack was dead.
Yes.
So I was pleasantly surprised to find out he was still alive.
Don't spoil it for the listeners.
I was more disturbed by the outhouse scene, if I'm honest.
Yes, yeah, it was kind of funny, and I do feel that there's a line of dialogue there that it helps them. They're not doing it through innocence; they're actually making a bit of a gag there, I'm hoping. But yes, going back was it was a very difficult film to track down for many years. It got a VHS release over in the States, and that's how I got it. I imported it when I was quite young. I know there was a DVD release recently, which also features some extra features and a commentary from Mr. Campbell himself, but I haven't managed to track that down. I might actually go and purchase it after this is over, because I noticed just there now that it's $6 on Amazon.com. So
take you 3 years to get it, but
yes, true, but it would be worth having, and especially for that commentary, it'd be quite nice. That would have been great research for me to do before the podcast.
As I said, I thought it felt more like a TV movie, and that would certainly explain why it was harder to get a hold of.
Doing a bit of digging into it, there was a report somewhere that one of the companies that was involved in creating it had gone bankrupt, and that caused some licensing issues for them actually releasing the film. But the director and writer, Ron Teachworth, I think he might have been possibly one of the teachers in Bruce's school, but he got a grant to produce this, and he'd written memoirs about his summer that he'd had, and I think these stories that happen in Going Back are something to do with his growing upness, and that might explain for the very gentle nature of things, because they're his fond memories of that he can't go back to. Now what we actually get, and the director Ron does manage to put across, is that he really the actors are so relaxed and natural in this that it almost feels like there isn't a script, and they know what they're going to be talking about, so they put things into their own words and have discussions in their own ways, and that really helps create a youthful friendship between the two leads. Nothing's been forced on them, so they know where they're going with the conversation, and they're able to do that. Bruce himself is incredibly relaxed in their performance, whereas in so many other films he applies a certain level of ham to it, because he knows that's what people are almost wanting. Whereas here you get a raw performance from him having to do what I like to think is improvisational drama with a point to follow. And he's very successful, and the relationships between each of the actors feel very natural, because they're given the freedom to be able to do what they want to do. Now, Bruce has gone on record and said this was his first go round as acting on film, because obviously The Evil Dead doesn't require acting, just reacting. The going back, he actually had to sit down and think about characterization, and that proved to be quite a bit of a challenge, especially whenever there's money riding on things, and they've got to deliver a decent performance that is worth it in the end, and that could be daunting for any actor, especially considering that he was in the lead for this film.
Yes, if you look on the posters, his name is a lot bigger than everyone else's.
Yeah, I think that poster was a re-release one. The video version that I have, it's very small at the bottom, and I think actually they mention his co-star who plays Cleveland, Christopher Howe, or Haw, however we want to pronounce it.
Yeah, I was challenged by that one.
Yeah, I think it's Haw. I know one person who has that name. We call it Haw, but that could be a Northern Irelandism.
So I would say Howe off the bat, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, well, maybe you can write in and tell us how to pronounce your name. It's only 4 letters. We're just in trouble. Hoi. Okay, we'll go Hoi. Whereas looking at the names, it's Campbell and Haw, and his name, which begins with an H. So that could be, it's not alphabetized. So he actually was seen as more of a lead, perhaps, at the time. But as history shows, Bruce was the one with the career, and recent releases show that he is name above title, which is a thing apparently on posters. The other big star that is in it is the actor who plays Jack Bedell, and I'm only saying he's a big star because I know his face from a number of other films, and you will too now.
Indeed.
Perry Mallet, who was also in Crimewave and Thou Shalt Not Kill, except he's got a particular look to him, and I really do like his look. He plays a Vietnam vet in I think all 3 of the films. Well, maybe not actually going back. No, I think about it. He's not. He's just a farmer, isn't he?
Yes, I think he did go and serve. I think it's in one of the earlier wars. I think it might have been Korea.
But perhaps that is something that they've taken from the real life actor.
Quite possibly.
And who better to pay a Vietnam vet than a Vietnam vet?
Exactly.
But I think there's a line toward the end of this about how Bruce Campbell's character is going to go back to what he did and avoid the draft and go on. So it's set in 1964, which is Vietnam time. So perhaps Jack Bedell had been in Korea or the Second World War, or perhaps even the First World War, given the age of him. Yeah, but it's a nice film as it goes along, and it's very gentle. It feels very natural. It looks quite well. Some of the shots are quite bland, but what he does is there's a certain amount of what would be Steadicam, which is not Steadicam in this. Obviously, the technology wasn't there for Steadicam, where perhaps he's following the actors as they're walking down a road, and it does feel like you're there with them.
Yeah.
And that helps the audience and members identify with these actors a great deal more as well. So I think everything was in the film's favour. It's just a bit of a shame that it never really got seen up until Bruce became a known star, and people started trying to find it, like myself. Because I certainly wouldn't have picked this up off the video shelf for Love Nor Money back in 1984.
No.
Also, the fact that I was 6 at the time and probably would have been picking up the Muppets instead.
Hey, don't put down the Muppets.
Love the Muppets, and I did like this film. I got into the characters and things like that this time round. I suppose maybe whenever I watched it the first time, I was still expecting, I don't know, something to attack the cabin in the woods that they were staying in. Bruce and his cabins are just...
well, what mosquitoes?
There were, yes, in that nasty bunkhouse that they were staying in, which is pretty awful. And I like that idea that, what these kids are spending their summer doing is... Can you imagine any kid now doing what they were doing in 1964 and jumping on the road and going and experiencing, helping an elderly man fix up the farm?
No.
Yeah,
I'm an old cynic, but no.
No. I think the words Instagram, iPhone, and Signal might come into play a bit more often if they were to try and remake Going Back in 2020 when we're recording this now. That this kind of thing wouldn't happen at all.
I think just the footage recently seen in Spain of British tourists would indicate.
Yeah.
No,
Drunken maraudery, I suppose, would be.
we aren't going home. We aren't self-isolating.
Yeah, yeah. And I do quite like the idea of what they're doing here, and it's very charming. And
It's the what really sells this film for me is the genuine feel of the relationships. I mean, as I said, I knew what was, like you say from the synopsis, what was going to happen beforehand, but the connections there did feel very genuine, and like seeing how those connections were still there when they go back, but obviously things have changed, and it felt very real, it felt very genuine, almost as you say, like Bruce says about how he's not acting in The Evil Dead, he's reacting. In a way, it's almost like they said, right, here you go, there's some backpacks, bugger off, we're going to film you.
yeah,
And I like the friendship between the two main characters survived. I mean, it felt very genuine. They seemed very comfortable around each other, and it was like there was a very good bit of casting. It was nice to see them on this adventure, and then again going back on this adventure, regardless of what happened, there was still that friendship at the center of it.
yeah. Well, if you, the listening public, wish to watch this, you can get it on Amazon Prime. Actually, it's quite easy to get a hold of, which I was a bit shocked about. That copy on Amazon Prime is exactly the same as the VHS I have. It's not the DVD copy, which is a bit of a pain. But I guess if you're paying for Prime, it's free to watch on there. So I do recommend people go out and give it a go, because it's one of those rarities in Bruce's career that you'll probably quite dig when you see it, because the man can act, and he doesn't advertise that too often in a lot of the films that he does. Which, I suppose if you're making a career doing what you're doing, then why rock the boat and try to do what every other actor is doing? Yeah, there's some logic there. I don't know exactly what it is, but who knows. One of the other things that Bruce made, and it was actually, I believe, made in 1983, but it's only seen light of day round about now, is that the Coen brothers went on to make a film called Blood Simple. Prior to making it, they put together an investment trailer, and Bruce played the role of Julian Marty, which was played by Dan Hedaya in Blood Simple, which I don't think the casting could be further away. Quite.
What do you mean? They look almost identical.
Yeah, I suppose. I think Bruce might hit you with a chainsaw.
Probably would, yeah.
Yeah. And did you get a chance to look at this? It's only 2 minutes long.
I've seen the trailer, yes. He played a very good person in mortal danger, shall we say. Mm-hmm. The man sure can crawl out of a car.
He can. He can cough and be in pain. And it's a really nice thing to do, and it makes you wonder, have you seen Blood Simple?
I have not.
No. I can't imagine what Blood Simple would be like had they gone with that casting. Dan Hedaya is a pretty incredible actor, and he's been in, or Hedaya, if you want to pronounce it that way. I've always said Hedaya since I was a kid. So he has a real particular performing type that he uses, and he generally plays the same kind of character from one film to the next. But when it comes to Blood Simple, that was a particularly career-defining role for him, and he cemented that film with his performance. I couldn't imagine that being Bruce, but obviously Bruce was available at the time they were filming this, and they could have had anyone playing that role of falling out of the car. And it's just a nice bit of trivia that it was in fact him. And it's one of those things that, it could have been Bruce, but it's another actor, and we see that quite frequently throughout his career. So next week we're going to see where Bruce lets another actor do his thing in Thou Shalt Not Kill Except, and another actor do his thing in Crimewave. We'll roll it up there, and we'll come back to you with a look at 1985. And if you want to get in touch with us beforehand, you can by emailing us at gareth@ayearinthecareer.com. And Simon, you have an email as well.
I certainly do. Simon@ayearinthecareer.com.
Excellent. You can find us online at Gareth Miles for Twitter for me, and then Simon as well at movie_mustache. And other than that, take care.
See you next time.
See if you can get the Beatles.
The Beatles. Everybody's crazy about the Beatles. Down to beat. No, that's not the Beatles. If I fell in love with you, would you promise to be true and help me understand? A little more bass in it. Oh, forget it. Who needs the Beatles?